stopped to look at the caribou, wait for Nick. Changed my clothes because this morning when we woke up camping, it was so cold. I just like put a bra on under what I was sleeping in, and hey, we finally hit 63 degrees, so it's a little warmer. So I have like, a short sleeve shirt on in case I actually feel warm enough to expose my arms, which would be really cool. But so yeah, I just need to say a quick thank you to the producers of The Greatest Showman, because thank you for casting Zac Efron, because now I get to listen to his beautiful voice like over my speakers singing about forbidden love. I mean, what's more romantic than that? Last time I heard from that, it was High School Musical, and I feel like, it's not really age appropriate for me to be blaring High School Musical anymore. But maybe I'll download that. Anyway, got my fix in with that. Figure I haven't even talked about what we did yesterday, and that was the whole point of me doing this, was that I could remember. This is my diary, since I don't have time to write. So yesterday, tons of wildlife. We saw 2 black bears on the side of the road. We saw tons of buffalo, one right on the side of the road, followed by another one, and then a whole herd of buffalo. We did get out and take one selfie by the single buffalo. And yeah, we know, dangerous, you're not supposed to, you're an idiot, people die that way. But we were right outside of the vehicle. If that thing would have moved a muscle, the 4 of us would have jumped into the passenger side of the van. It would have been safe. It would have been completely fine. So don't worry. We're backroads leaders. We know what we're doing. We were having a ball. We pulled over for the bears. We saw 3 different porcupine on the side of the road. I don't think I've ever seen a porcupine, and I wasn't anticipating to see one. They're cute with their little pokies going everywhere as they kind of wobble away from you. And this was all on the drive. This was in British Columbia, right before we got to the Liard Hot Springs. So we're on the very, very tip top of British Columbia at this point. And there were signs everywhere, caution wildlife. And I was like, dang, we better see some wildlife, because they have flashing signs. But yeah, there were buffalo in the street. It was an acceptable caution sign to have everywhere. The bears were definitely my favorite part. I've never just been that close to a bear, seen a bear in the wild like that. We were right across the street from it, looking at it from our vans. I sure was not getting out of my van for a bear, but it was cool, really cool. And we got to Liard Hot Springs at about, I don't know, must have been about 7, and got to our campsite, set up our tent, immediately went to get food, went and ate at, just a mediocre diner. The only food available. There's no grocery stores, no convenience stores. Really rude waitress. I can't imagine talking to any customers the way she talked to us. I was like, dang. So we do know that mean Canadians exist. Maybe that's a good thing, because we were under this impression that all Canadians were nice up until this point. That lady was not nice. Anyway, her mom was nice. I think she got in trouble. We're going to call her mom. I don't know if it was, but this lady kind of rebuked the waitress and was like, oh yeah, you guys got to eat here. We'll feed you, because there's nothing else for four more hours. So, all right, so that was nice. We didn't tell her that we had a trailer full of food. We wanted to eat real food, you know what I mean? So, anyway, it is kind of funny though. Like I said, we are kind of walking billboards right now. Liard, there was tons of people around. It's the most people we've seen. And so people are just kind of looking at us in the campground as we roll up and asking us questions what is Backroads? What are these vans? Who's the sucker that has the trailer and all the bikes? Something like that would be me. Anyway, really cool, a lot of fun atmosphere around there. We go to these hot springs that I'm kind of skeptical about, because I'm thinking they're going to be all built up, all weird, it's going to be nature that humans took and destroyed. But no, it was like really impressive, really cool. We get there, and yes, they've built like changing rooms around there, but there's just outhouses. And then you can go into these hot springs, which they've kept completely natural, all trees around them, you know, like a rocky, sandy bottom. And it's nearly dark when we get there. So like the mist is rising high into the air, the steam from the water. And these hot springs are amazing because, again, it's like cold, really cold. The hot springs were amazing. And another cool thing about them is to get there, you can park, but then you have to walk like kind of over this boardwalk, kind of like they have in Yellowstone National Park, where you're on like boardwalks going over like the geysers. And whew, I just jumped a little bit. This motorcycle came. He is flying. He looks like he's trying to die right now. Jeez. Anyway. I think he scared Amy too, because Amy just tapped her brakes when he went whizzing by her. Yikes. Anyway, we walked across this boardwalk right at sunset, right at dusk, like I said, so it was gorgeous. The sun was just like reflecting off of kind of the marshland that we were walking over, and really was a good time to get there. So we're hanging out, got there a little bit before 9, ended up staying till midnight because we're all talking, hanging out, and we end up meeting this other Canadian. We're, you know, telling stories about back roads and funny guests or difficult guests. And apparently this guy's worked in like the customer service, tourism industry too. So he kind of joins our conversation and ends up being awesome. Like, he becomes our personal tour guide for these hot springs. He's from about 5 hours. He's from Fort Nelson, which is about 5 hours away. We actually just drove through Fort Nelson. But he came just for the night to see these hot springs because he's heard they're the best. He's been there before. Apparently hot springing is like a thing. What do they call it? Oh, they call it soaking. They don't call it hot springing. That was my own twist, but soaking. And they go and try to find natural hot springs such as this one. But this one is super popular for good reason. But since we went like at nighttime, like it wasn't overly populated, it was really peaceful, and once the stars started coming out, it just became like magical. So many stars up in the sky, and when you looked up, it was like framed by the pine trees all around. It looked like, a page from the Polar Express, like the beautiful book that I used to read as a kid, now as a movie, but it just made me think of like one of the pages in that book, and it was reality, and it was so cool. And this Canadian says they're predicting the Northern Lights tonight. I should give the Canadian a name. His name was Paul. Paul says they're predicting the Northern Lights tonight, and that's like what we all just want to see so bad. Spoiler alert, there were no Northern Lights, but we're out there just looking at it and in awe of the sky, and he's telling us stories of when he's seen the Northern Lights, and he says, I'm not a religious person, but when I see those Northern Lights, like, that's the closest to heaven I've ever felt. And I thought that was an interesting, cool way to put it for a non-religious person. And what else did he tell us? He was telling us so much just about, he was like so impressed, first of all, that we were Americans. He was so excited. He was like, I don't get to talk to Americans very often. Like, you guys have funny accents. And like I said earlier, he told us about the Alaskan Highway, which we're driving on right now. And he asked us, I really want to know, like, what do you guys think of Trump? All four of us just kind of go silent, like, all right, I am not going to talk about Trump here, but I mean, because I can't cuss. I told myself I wasn't going to cuss here, and so we're just not going to talk about it. The funny thing was, he wanted to hear our opinion, but then he just kind of started talking about Trump and what they think of him, and then started talking about how Canadians love Obama. Obama's the best, and they love Bill Clinton because, like, who cares? Like, getting a BJ is like a rite of passage for a prime minister in Canada, so like, way to go, Bill Clinton. And we're like, what the heck? And then he goes, and we love Bernie Sanders because once Bernie Sanders was talking and a bird landed on his podium, and we love birds up here. We're like, okay, cool. So yeah, yeah, he was telling us a lot of like the perspective they have up here on politics and everything, which was interesting to hear. But the best part of this night was definitely when he was like, it's pitch black at this point, okay? And he's like, well, have you been like to the upper pool? We were like, no, we haven't. He's like, oh, you gotta go. So it's pitch black there though. Really can't see anything. Nick has a headlamp, so we take his headlamp, and as we're getting to this upper pool, the water gets cooler, and we're like away from the main area of the people, and we're like walking by, and then Paul goes, we just got to be careful because this is where like the grizzly bears hang out. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what? Are you... Okay, my inner city girl came out hardcore last night because people are talking about bears in a casual manner, bear attacks, bear killing you, grizzly bears, and oh, by the way, I'm taking you to this like secret upper pool, and this is where the grizzly bears live. And I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this at all. And Amy, Nick, and Natalie were all like, let's do it, let's go. Kayla, we're fine. A grizzly bear's not going to attack a group of 5. I'm like, but you know, my mind works differently than most. Like, once something's on my mind, I am picturing the worst, especially when it comes to wildlife. But in the end, well, now that I'm alive, I can say that it was a magical experience, because we started going up this kind of like river, and we're walking, like the water's only up to our waist, and there's like these like embankments going up kind of like over our heads, so kind of feels like we're walking through this little cove. We're ducking under branches, ducking under trees and roots, and the water's got like a cooler feeling to it, and it's freezing outside. And you know, waterfalls were like trickling down on the sides, and just with like the light of the stars above us and the one little flashlight, like I swear I was just waiting for like a ferry to fly out because it was so pretty. And again, I felt like I was being transported into like a children's novel about, you know, all wonder and awe and adventure and exploring, and it was so great. And the 5 of us are like walking back there. I'm still afraid of bears, and I'm not doing a good job hiding it. But I mean, you can't talk to me about bears and expect me to act cool and calm and collected. That just ain't gonna happen. That is not me, Kayla. No. So, get to the end, and the 5 of us are like huddled together. Again, I feel like little children because we're like huddled down in this cool little pool, and just kind of in awe, and like I feel like we could like build a fort or make a secret society there. And then Paul goes, yeah, we should probably go back because the grizzly bears are around here. And I'm like, all right, get me the heck out of here. Like, magic over. If I get eaten by a grizzly bear, my mom is not going to want to know about the magic that was in the pools, you know? So, yep, Mom, love you. I was thinking about you. Didn't want to make you. That would be a tragedy for you, not me. I'd just be chilling with Jesus in heaven. But anyway, at least I hope so. So we walk back through the magical area, and then Paul has another piece of magic to share with us, Treasure Cove. So Treasure Cove is on the other side of the hot springs, and this is where the hot springs start. So the water is super, super hot as you make your way up. Oh, we have another big use caution sign. This time it's a moose, not a buffalo. So the story behind Treasure Cove is it's the start of the hot spring, and so the water gets progressively hotter because this is where the hot water is actually coming from. And myth goes that you have to find a rock that's about the size of a toonie or a loonie. What do they call them? I don't know, those Canadian silver dollars. I think it's a toonie. Anyway. Maybe it's a loonie. It's a loonie because there's a loon on it. Okay. I don't know. So we find these rocks the size more or less of a loony, and we start making our way through the super, super hot water to put our lucky rocks down there. And hang on, I'm seeing if I can make a pass. I'm making a pass. Alright, so find our rocks, and we are making our way to the rock where the springs start, and this is where we need to lay our loony rocks for good luck for 1 year, is how it goes. You get a rock there, you have 1 year of good luck. So walking there, we're like kicking the water because the water at our feet is cooler than around our hips, and it's like really hot around our hips. So we're like kicking the water up to try to like bring cold water up around our hips because this water is so hot. It was crazy. And I like hot water, but it was pretty unbearable at some points. But so that was another fun adventure where it just kind of feel like kids, like doing something fun and silly. Then he says, let's go to Treasure Cove, which made me think of like, you know, Peter Pan and the mermaids and whatever. Good time. Awesome time. Side note, funny thing, can't leave it out. There was a whole group of like 20 teenagers there. Teenagers meaning like 13 to 23. And they were all high on like shrooms. They were smoking weed. They had a bunch of beer, cigarettes. But there were these kids, they were younger than my little sister Jenna, for sure. Like, so we were like, who are these kids? And Paul's like, oh, these are probably like local kids. Local meaning 5 hours away from the nearest town. I'm like, okay, local kids, gotcha. He's like, yeah, you know, locals around here, you notice like up north here, these kids are just like more rugged. They grow up on oil fields. All their parents work in oil, and they're probably from Fort Nelson, and what they do for fun is they go places and they try to start fights, which we found out was true because these guys came over, tried to talk to us, and we were friendly with them. And then they like go back to their friends and they're like, wow, did you see that? We like didn't start a fight with someone. Like those people were actually like nice, and they had these like red flares going, which like we did dunk at one point into the water. They were all too high to probably even know what was going on, but like, why do you have red flares out in the middle of the forest just burning on a log? Like, I don't know, stupid kids. But they were definitely like tripping hard, and I mean, I never done that, but if they were like high in that area, in that like that atmosphere, I'm like, you know what, that grizzly bear is gonna eat those kids before it's gonna eat me, because those high freaking kids keep wandering off to the land of the grizzly bears by themselves, and that grizzly bear will be happy because he'll have himself like a 13-year-old treat, and hopefully he isn't gonna come for us then. So night ends, we have to walk back through this boardwalk, and Paul is like, oh yeah, that's like bear attack boardwalk. I'm like, great, what? I'm like dying. I am no longer, well, I wasn't faking brave to begin with the whole bear situation, but now I'm really not faking brave, and I'm like, what? Can we like just get floaties and sleep out here? Especially since it's like 0 degrees out here, like, ugh. So we walk back on the boardwalk. We're walking, all 5 of us close. We keep talking because that's what you're supposed to do, you know, like bear's not going to attack you as long as he hears you and knows you're there and you're not threatening him or her between her babies or whatever. So Nick's in front with one of the flashlights, and all of a sudden he goes, there's an animal over there. So calm. He says just like that. I'm like, dying inside. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Start saying my prayers like, oh dear Jesus, please, I really want to get back to Utah alive. But so Nick, we all stop. Freaking Paul just tells us, you know, don't worry about the bears. Like, more people die from moose attacks in a year than bear attacks. So I'm like, okay. So So Nick shines his light on this animal he sees, and what the hell is it? It's a moose. And it's a baby moose. Which, hello, the thing everyone always says is Mama is going to attack if you get between her and the baby. And we do not see Mama. And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it for sure. Like, but we want to stop and look at it for a second. I'm like, okay, you backroads leaders, there is brave, there is stupidity, and there is whatever. It was probably fine, and it was cool in hindsight, again, because we lived, and we saw the calf late at night, but it was pitch black out there, and I was scared, and I just wanted to go home. So we finally made it to the end of the boardwalk, got in our van, went back to the campsite, proceeded to freeze all night long. Let me tell you, backroads, you gotta get some new sleeping bags for Alaska, because I was cold and I was wearing socks and fuzzy pants and 2 sweatshirts, and my head was in a cocoon all night, and the 4 of us were sleeping like boom, 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 and we all woke up cold. But now it's my temperature gauge says 61 degrees outside, so that's cool. It's the warmest it's been since I've got to Alaska, and I think it's about time for me to go rock out to some Zac Efron from The Greatest Showman again, or maybe some country music, maybe some